Bum bum, how's it going? And like it is on a Friday, we look at current affairs. And in today's video, I'm really surprised with this because I didn't know that evictions can also happen in the most expensive streets. So yes, we are going to be talking about evictions in the most expensive street in Johannesburg. Recently, a CEO had a contract to buy a house for a whopping 35 million. However, they are being evicted. This was in a Sunday Times not so long ago, and basically the article reports of this eviction. Welcome, my name is TJ. We are just going to jump into this, and if you've never been here before, this is what we do. We talk about current affairs on a Friday and anything and everything around property and business. Like I did mention, it is reported in the Sunday Times article that a CEO's family's trust, so the CEO, just like me, he's got a family trust where he bought a property for 35 million rand. That's in Johannesburg. Now, it is also reported in the same article that he spent 14 million rand. Yes, on the property, that is, in terms of adding value to the property. That was, so he did some renovation over a period of 2 years. When I read the article, it almost sounds like this deal here, or should I say the contract, was cracked just before COVID, 2019-2020. They moved in at that time. It is also stated in the article that he later on spent an additional 13 million on furnishings and decorating, right? And this is to make the property pretty, make it livable. And this is a posh house. We can see 35 million rand, right? This is almost like a big complex for some of us who are wanting to do complexes and so on. But this CEO, he bought this property for him and his family, and they have been living in it. However, the article says that they were recently being evicted. Whether they've been evicted or not, I don't know. But I am not here to discuss the CEO or his family. I am going to be talking about the contract. What went wrong here? And how can we learn from it? Because we are in business. This is a fellow CEO. He might have made a blunt. He might have thought that this was good. I don't know, but I'm going to look at the article cold. I don't know all the facts. I've never spoken to the CEO before, and I'm just going to give my comments based on what we have read in the article. Yeah, does that make sense? And you can add your 2 cents as well. Remember, this is all from a learning perspective. The article went on to talk about that he was paying what's called an occupational rent of 100,000. And let us actually define what an occupational rent is. Occupational rent is when you are staying on a property and you don't own it yet, you're occupying it, so you pay what is called occupational rent. Occupying rent, occupational rent. Yep. So for this reason, this CEO, together with his family, or should I say his trust, was paying occupational rent of 100,000. Now you might have seen that I have now just kind of like diverted from talking about the CEO and now I'm talking about the trust, because it's not the CEO who bought this property. So high five, Mr. CEO, because the property was bought with a trust. Now, we're always talking about doing businesses, how best do you protect yourself, and this is a very good typical example of a business person who understands structures, right? Why do I say he understands structures? It's because he's got a family trust. And he bought his family house in a family trust. Things have now gone wrong, whether he was evicted or not being evicted. But what's going to happen, the case here, the debt that's going to come out of here now, is not on him, Mr. CEO. It's on the entity of the trust. So tomorrow, just like me, when I was in business and I lost 5 million rand, I was doing that business in my personal name. So it has taken me a long time to come back from that debt because that debt is sitting on me. This CEO here, if this happens and this debt here chases after him, this debt is not on him, it is on the trust. So he's trying to ring fence himself, he's protected himself from what could go wrong. He's protected himself from what exactly is happening now. So a high five to Mr. CEO. That's something that we can learn from him. Have structures that can protect you and that can protect your assets as well. Now I want to dive in here to talk about, we spoke about paying occupational rent. He paid around about 100,000 and the article says he was in the property, or should I say he spent 14 million in renovation for 2 years. So it basically means that he has paid occupational rent of around about 2.4 million. I wonder why he went the route of occupational rent as opposed to what? Now, I want to introduce you guys to this. I mean, if you haven't read the article, I'm going to explain it to you, right? So, but you're most welcome to also jump in on to read the article. It's on the Sunday Times. You can jump into it. But here's the thing. It's by the way, it's in the description right below. So yeah, you can read it there. But also, you can also give comments right below in the comments whilst we are talking about this. You can add in your 2 cents as well to this article. Or from a learning perspective. No hate. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about it. He bought a property. That's what the Sunday Times say. For 35 million. Great. But he didn't pay for it. He paid a deposit, right? And then now it also says that, and this is what went wrong now. It now saying that he's refusing to pay the remaining amount of money. Now, is he refusing to pay or is he not able to pay? Well, there's a subtle difference there. It depends on who is reading it, right? I think maybe his family trust is not able to pay it. Thinking about it, they do mention that he was going to do something around gas and so on into the country. I haven't seen a lot of that. I've seen gas years coming up. Well, my house, we cook on gas and things like that. But I haven't seen a lot of that gas thing coming up yet. So maybe his business hasn't just shoot off. Maybe he bought this property here thinking that his business is going to shoot off. Maybe there was already signs. Maybe there was a contract in place. I don't know why he bought this property. I don't know the CEO, to be frank with you. I've never met him. I don't know him. I've never heard of him until now when I was reading this article. But what went wrong? When I read the article on Sunday Times, it almost, with the way that I do property, this almost sounds like it was an installment sale. Because he paid a certain deposit, he was allowed to stay on the property, he had an occupational rent that he was supposed to pay, and at a particular time he was supposed to be paying the difference. Now he went on to do the renovations, which means that he was allowed to change the property. In an installment sale, you're allowed to do that. He went on to change to decorate the place with an additional 13 million. So which means that he was allowed to do that. Now, could this be cosmetics? I don't know. Or could they be structural? This 13 million, I don't know. So now for the fact that he is being evicted, his argument is say, hold on, I've already contributed 27 million onto this property in renovation, finishings and decorating. But when you're in an installment sale, when you have failed to perform what was in the contract, basically you lose everything, right? And to me, that's what it sounds like here, but we don't want to dive into that. I want us to talk about what could have happened, right? In terms of rectifying the problem. So let's say you find yourself in an installment sale. Let's remove the 35 million. Let's remove the 14 million. Whatever numbers you want to attach to this, right? How could you have rectified this if you find yourself in a situation like this? So number one, for me, I looked at this. Being evicted basically means that there's been some back and forth here. Maybe you're not paying. So the reason that's one of the reasons why one will be evicted, right? So there's an occupational rent of 100,000. It's a substantial amount of money. This is not the everyday middle class. This is not the everyday rich. This is like the super 1.1% of the country, right? Where they're able to pay 100,000. Not a lot of people actually earn 100,000 a month. So if you're able to pay 100,000 of occupational rent, right? It basically means you're probably making 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 more, right? Per month for you to be able to achieve that. So this is not an ordinary person or entity that's buying that. High five, there is a structure in place. Then the second thing that I want to speak to here is that if you found yourself in a particular place like this, what I would have done is I would have gone in to negotiate early with my seller. So I would have gone to my seller and say, look, I'm having challenges and these are my challenges. To me, it really sounds that this is in the peak of COVID. A lot of things could have changed. But above that, they also spent quite a bit here. So one of the other things that I might have done is that instead of focusing on my reno, I might have focused on paying off the property, right? This is not knowing the people that I've now lived into this property. I don't know them. I'm reinforcing that. But I would have focused on paying off the property first so that I do not have that big brother. Or number two, what I would have done is I would have spent this 14 million on renovating the property, and then immediately I would have gone to the bank so that I can negotiate with the bank, and instead of paying an occupational rent, then I can start to be paying off my bond, right? Well, this bond now would have been of 35 million, right? But circumstances may differ. Maybe they might not be able to qualify for a bond. Maybe I don't know. So we're giving here some tips based on what we have read so far. Now, you find yourself in this position now. What now? Yep. So the other possibility is that if my seller is not willing to negotiate, and I know now this is where it's going. Number one, I've done 14 million of renovations, so the place looks cool. 13 million of finishings and decorating. The place looks livable, beautiful. I bought it for 35 million. So I've polished the house now. How about maybe selling it? So that's now what is called a back-to-back. So for some of you that might not understand a back-to-back, I'll introduce it to you. You are in a contract with one individual, the seller, and you've put in a little bit of reno here like what they've done, or even no reno at all, but then you sell the property to the next person. And obviously you're buying it for 35 and maybe you sell it for 40. So you're going to be making the 5 million. That's what's called a back-to-back. Does it make sense? A 5. Yeah. Then the other thing is here is maybe relook at the terms of the contract. So for instance, this was occupational rent, which means that it's not money going off the 35 million. So I may negotiate that and say, hey, maybe can we consider the occupational rent for it to be coming off my amount that I'm paying off? The amount that is the final price of the property, right? Maybe I am now going to the bank so that I can refinance this property. Can you give me maybe 5 months, 10 months, and I'm going to refinance this property? So there's a number of ways that could have avoided the evictions, but this is my comments without actually understanding the intricacies of the deal. But the bottom line here, based on the Sunday Times that I read here, it basically means that this was an installment sale of sort. If you agree with me in the chat, let me know. If you don't agree with me, again, let me know in the chat. My recommendations of how to rectify the problem, those are like 5 tips that I thought about. What else do you think? Remember, this is all about learning, yeah? So in the comments below, you can let me know. Now, whilst we are at this, I just want to say to you, thank you for coming back and watching these videos. Every Friday, we are talking about current affairs, and this was an article that was in the Sunday Times. I'd like you to subscribe right at the bottom, but over and above that, if this information is exciting to you or adding proper value to your game, what game is that? Business, property, and also, if it is that good, share it with someone. Let we all learn together. Welcome to the TJ tribe. It is I, your boy, TJ. Check it out on the next video.